All right. Well, good morning, ladies. My name is Glenn Price, and I'm one of the co-founders of Keystone Financial Resources. And I want to welcome all of you to our Her Retirement webinar, where Jonathan and I teach and empower women how to take control of their finances so that you'll have confidence in your retirement years. And so today, as you can see, I'm going to be talking about the myths about women and money. We're going to talk about some of the hard facts about women and what happens. What's that situation typically look like when they're in retirement? Then we're going to talk about how do you discover your true values and why it's important to match your values and your spending. I promise when you understand this, and hopefully after the end of today that you will, it will be the fuel that motivates you to take control of your finances. And I promise it'll also change the way you think about money. If this is your first time attending this episode, I want to encourage you to go back and watch last week's episode. We're building these episodes so that hopefully they'll build on one another, but it'll also answer a question that may be on your mind because we're hearing it from other women. And that is, why are two men so motivated to teach and empower women with their money? And, you going back and watching that will really hit on that. I talk about, for me, it has to do with the relationship with my grandmother. For Jonathan, it has to do with the relationship with his mom. And it'll be important because it'll give you a perspective of why we're so motivated to make sure that we do teach and empower women to take control of their finances. So I think that'll be helpful for you. All right. Now, when you're building a strong financial plan for you to have confidence in so that you can know that it will stand the test of time, it's really similar to building a house. In other words, what's the most important part of building a strong house? A good foundation, right? Well, today we're going to be talking about the foundational pieces, because once you get that level, once you get that in place, then it really makes building the rest of your plan easier. It makes it more fun because you not only know what you're building, but you know why you're building it. So we're going to hit on that today. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the facts. There's a gentleman by the name of David Bach, which you'll hear me refer to. David is definitely an authority on women and money, and he wrote a book called Smart Women Finish Rich. And he said that when it comes to retiring successfully and comfortably, the obstacles faced by women can be too great to overcome without a plan. The key is without a plan. Okay, but let's talk about those obstacles, because it's important that you understand what those obstacles are, because until you understand that, then you won't know how to overcome those obstacles. So first of all, in general, women usually earn less money than men in their working lives. Now, one of the reasons why is because you ladies spend on average 11 years not working, or 11 years less than men, you could say, because why? You're raising your children, maybe you're taking time out to take care of an elderly parent. But how does that affect you? Will it affect your Social Security, and it will affect your retirement plans? Also, the majority of women are single by the age of 75, compared to men who are similarly your age. Most of those fellas are still married up into their 90s if they're still alive. And so the reality is that you women have a longer life expectancy than men. I read recently that on average, women live 6 to 8 years longer than men. And so as a result of that, 80% of the men, ladies, they die married. 80% of you women die single. And so it's going to be really important that you know that, and why it's important that you are prepared, that that your head is in the game. Because, another way to say that is that if you're married now, there's an 80% chance that your husband will never know if your financial plan fails or succeeds. So if you're not involved, you've got to be involved. If you're not married, then again, you've got to make sure that you're up to speed and your head's in the game so that you're not one of these statistics. Here's another one. Women's household income falls 50% after a death. We see it all the time, Jonathan and I do. We have a lot of clients who are widows here. And another one is that women's income falls by 41% after a divorce. Again, you need to be aware of that. Most all women, at some stage in your life, you'll be managing money solo. It's not a matter of if, it's usually a matter of when. And another thing, 53% of the widows had no plan for what would happen if their husband should die before them. And women 65 and older are 80% more likely to be below the poverty level threshold than men. And then 69% of widows said becoming the sole financial decision maker was their top financial challenge. So again, the purpose for me sharing this information with you ladies is certainly not to invoke fear or to scare you at all, but it is to wake you up and to motivate you that, you know what, you've got to take action now. Ladies, if COVID-19 has done anything, I hope that it's woken you up to the fact that you need to know where everything is. If you're married and your husband's been in charge all these years, you've got to get your head in the game. Because if he gets sick and 7 days later he dies, what are you going to need to know about finances? The answer is everything. And so it's time that you get involved. It's time that you know what's going on. David Bach also says, don't ever put your entire financial fate into the hands of someone else. Now, what he's not saying is that you should never trust anyone, right? I mean, if you're married, or if you're not married but going to be married again one day, certainly that marriage has to be built on trust. But what he is saying is that you've got to be educated and you've got to have your head in the game, because you'll make a significant difference in your family's overall finances by being involved. And you'll hear a little bit about that if you go back and hear my story about my Nana. And another thing, 50% of marriages end in what? Divorce. And one of the top reasons, ladies, has to do with money. So again, you getting on the same page, and you say, well, gosh, you know, it's impossible for me to get on the same page with my husband as it relates to money. Well, one of the things that we do here at Keystone is that we really focus on that, because it's really important to make sure that you're on the same page. I met with a family yesterday, and they weren't completely on the same page. And you could see the conflict there. But before the end of their meeting, they were on the same page. They were excited about what we were doing. And they said, you know what, this kind of felt like therapy because it helped them work through some things, which is critically important for your success. You know, our hope is that we could reduce those divorce rates and more families could stay married. And I think by helping women get involved with their money can have an impact on that. If you're not married now, and maybe you had a marriage that the money was a big problem, well, we want to equip you with the tools so that the next time you get married, if you get married again, that you don't make the same mistake. What do they say? If you keep doing the same thing over and over and you'll get the same results, that's the definition of insanity. Well, you're not insane, but we want to help you get educated so that you can be smarter and make better decisions and have better relationships in the future as it relates to that. And that's our heart and our goal here at Keystone. Now, it was important that I talked about where we are, because, you know, one of the things I'll say is you know, if you don't know where you're going, you might not like where you end up. What's true about not knowing the facts and not knowing that you could be headed to one of these statistics. That's why it's important that we talk about those. But now going forward, our goal and our job is to help families and ladies avoid those things to become stronger as it relates to their money. So let's switch and let's talk about the myths about money and women. There's more than one, but today I'm only going to talk about the one that Jonathan and I see the most. Seems to be a snare for a lot of women. And that is this, what we call the Cinderella myth, meaning that, hey, my husband's going to take care of me. Well, ladies, here's the reality. Only 45% of Americans have enough money in savings to cover at least the basic essentials. Only 45%. So if men over the last century have been in charge of the finances in the home, then one perspective on that is that they've not done that great of a job. Well, another perspective that I would give you is that they desperately need your help. Here's what I know to be true. And Jonathan and I see this all the time. We talk about this, that when families come in and when they're on the same page, they usually have more assets and there's certainly more peace in their marriage and they're having more fun, which is what we want you guys to be doing, you ladies to be doing when you're married. However, when we see families come in that don't have that, then again, they don't have as much money. There is more conflict if only one person has been involved. And so what we can also say is that for those couples where they're not both on the same page, after they meet with us and they choose to engage our company and our firm and our process of how we help families, then what happens is they get on the same page. That has to happen. And what we see is that their financial state, their state of mind, their attitude, their marriage, everything goes up and it gets better. So it's critically important to understand that. And now here's another thing. The median retirement income for Americans aged 65 to 74 is only $34,285 a year. That means over half Americans are below that. And you know that that's difficult to live on. But the average income for women over 65 is just a little over $18,000 a year. Now I hear women say, Jonathan, I will hear them say, my Social Security will take care of me. Well, the reality is that the average Social Security is only about $14,000 a year, a little over $1,100 a month. And so Social Security was never designed to replace your income. It was only designed to supplement. So you can't depend on that. On average, women have accumulated 34% less money in their retirement accounts. I mentioned that a while ago because you've made less money and you've spent less time, so you have less money in those accounts. So ladies, fair or not, women need to do more financial planning than men. And if you're married, then it's critically important that you, at this stage, get your head in the game, okay? Let me go back for just a moment. Because a lot of times as it relates to some of this, we'll see that a lot of women come in and they'll think that they're the exception, that it's not going to happen to them. And we have had a lot of conversations with a lot of women who have been blindsided and because they weren't prepared for what came when something happened in that relationship. And they put their financial fate and their financial future in the hands of someone else, and things didn't work out the way they planned. And they were blindsided by that. So, you've got to plan for the worst and hope for the best. We're definitely, the half is half full around here. But we do have to plan for those things. So when things like that happen, then you're not left in the dark, alone and afraid. Okay, that's really, really important. So ladies, if you've been on the sidelines, maybe your mindset is, you know what, I'm married and my husband's good at that and I'm just not interested in that. I want to encourage you, you're going to have to take responsibility here and get your head in the game. Or maybe you're on the sidelines and you go, you know what, I want in the game, I just don't know what to do. Or maybe you are in the game. But maybe you need to up your game because the tax laws are constantly changing, regardless of where you are. And then here's what I can say is that Jonathan and I can help you. Let's say that you're out there and you're like, you know what, I want to learn how to do this on my own. We're going to help you learn how to do that through these webinar series if you'll stay with us. Or maybe you're saying, you know what, I want to do this, but I don't want to do this alone. Then I want to encourage you. At any time, you can call our office at 615-661-9554. Again, that's 615-661-9554. and you can make an appointment. No obligation. We can either do it here in the office. We can either do it via Zoom. It can even be a phone call if you've got questions. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you get the tools. If you do want to do this on your own, hey, you book an appointment as well, because I promise you there's some things that you can learn and that we can help you with, because you certainly don't want to leave some things undone because you didn't know. Okay, so I want to offer that. Again, no obligation, but our heart is to make sure that you get the information, the tools you need so that you can be successful at what you're doing going forward. Now, the next thing I want to do, it may be a little hard to see, but we're going to give you this quiz. You're going to get an email, and if you're watching this and it's not, and maybe you're watching this later down the road and you didn't get the email, if you'll email us at www.keystonefinancialresources.com. Again, that's www.keystonefinancialresources.com. And you can request for the quiz. For some reason you didn't get it, then contact us and we'll get you this quiz. But it's a great quiz. And actually, David, it's in his book, Smart Women Finish Rich. And what the book does is that this quiz, in essence, it goes through and there's a series of questions. And if you'll notice, it tells you to put a score based on what your answer is. And then you'll tally that up in the end. Now, if you don't score well, take heart, okay? Because if you'll stay with us, we're going to help improve that score. But it'll at least help you know, hey, where are you? Because you want to know going forward, where your money's at, where your family's money's at. You need to know where they are and what's going on at all times, okay? So, you're going to, again, that quiz will be very helpful. It'll just help you see where you are. Now, I want to mention here, you've heard me mention David Bach a few times. David is a New York Times, 10-time actually, bestseller. He's been on Oprah Winfrey. And he wrote a book called Smart Women Finish Rich. We're actually privileged to know David. I've actually met David. I've gone through my wife and I went through another course of his 20 years ago. And it's so neat that today we're actually able to do some work with David because, as I said earlier, he certainly is an authority when it comes to women and money. And by the way, you're going to get a copy by attending this. You're going to get a copy of the book, Smart Women Finish Rich. It's a fantastic read. You've got to read it. It's a great book, okay? So I wanted to mention that about David. Now, let's switch and talk about putting your money where your values are. This, I believe, Jonathan and I believe, is the foundation of where you're going to build your financial plan. And that's connecting and matching your money with your values. And, Jonathan and I practice what we call purpose-focused financial planning. And what that means is that we help women or families discover, many times for the very first time, what their values actually are as it relates to money. And it's easy, but it's not. It's easy because it's in you. Your values, what's important to you and what you care about is in you. But what you'll find when you go through this exercise that I'm going to take you through in a little bit is that that your main values aren't the top values that surface. You're going to have to dig for them. You're going to have to work for them because we've not been trained to think that way when it comes to money. Usually when we're thinking about money and financial advisors, we assume the conversation has to deal with, assets and liabilities, investments, taxes, when you're going to retire. Those are critical things to discuss, obviously, right? But Jonathan and I believe that's not where you begin. We believe that where you begin is with the question, the answer to the question is, what's important about money to you? In other words, what drives you when it comes to money? You need to know what that is because I promise your attitude about money defines everything that matters about your personal financial situation. In other words, determining how much money you actually need, how hard you're willing to work to get it, how it actually feels when you get it. And I can say with 100% confidence that understanding what money means to you, when you get that, when you understand that, you'll become unstoppable. I promise. Now, before we go through the exercise, let me take just a moment and let's talk about, let me show you some examples of what I mean by values, what values are. Okay, things like freedom, security, happiness, peace of mind, power, helping others, helping family, realizing my true potential, greater spirituality, connection with others, fulfillment, confidence, being the best, making a difference, fun, growing, adventure. Those are all values, okay? Goals are things like pay down a debt, right? It's usually something that where there's beginning and an end. And, you know, having $1 million, not running out of money, paying for college, traveling. You know, I hear all the time that travel is a value. No, travel is the goal. It's what do you benefit from? Why do you travel? What do you get when you get to where you want to go, right? It's that freedom, the peace of mind, and the joy that you have when you travel, for example. Getting a new car, and you can follow the list. And many times what happens is that we find over and over again that most people plan their financial lives based on their goals. And the truth is that that's one of the reasons they don't stay excited and they don't stay fulfilled as a result of that because they're looking at that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through an exercise that I believe is one of the, Jonathan and I both believe, probably the single most effective tool that we know that help people create a life plan that leads to the ultimate financial security, which is what you want anyway, right? And so I'm going to take you through a process of what we call the values ladder, okay? Building the values ladder. Now, just asking that question, it really forces you to evaluate what you're really looking for in your life. And when you understand what you're really looking for in your life, then ladies, that becomes the foundation for where all smart financial plans are built from. And as I said earlier, when you get that piece, it'll be easier to build. It'll be a heck of a lot more fun because you know what you're building, but more importantly, you know why you're building it, okay? And so that's why as we go through this, I want you to understand. Now, the reason this is so important is because, you know, think about it. How can you possibly put together an empowering financial plan unless you know what it is that you really care about? For example, if what's important to you about money is that money provides, you know, is the security that it provides, but you're working paycheck to paycheck, then there's something wrong. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture, right? Because you know you're working paycheck to paycheck, but you want security. Or if another, for example, if what money does for you, what's important to you is that is the freedom that it brings, but yet you're tied to a job 60 hours a week to pay for a beautiful home and maybe even a new car or both. But what you really want to be doing is traveling. Then what happens is at that point, your financial life is in conflict with what's really more important to you, and that's traveling. You see, if the way we handle our money conflicts with our personal values, then we'll never be completely fulfilled and happy. Let me give you an example. I had a couple in my office actually yesterday, and she was telling me a story about this new vehicle, beautiful new vehicle that she bought. She had always wanted this vehicle, and her husband said, you know what? And I encouraged her to get it because I said, you deserve it. So they bought it, and she's had it for, you know, maybe 6 months or so. And she's like, you know, all of a sudden I'm just like agitated about this vehicle. You know, it's not new anymore. I don't get the fulfillment that I once got when I first got in it. And it's like, I don't understand. In fact, I'm even kind of mad at my husband because he encouraged me to do it. And he doesn't know why, and I don't know why. Well, as we kept digging into their financial life, what we found is that what was really important to her was not a new car. Is right now the car is actually getting in the way because now she has payments for that car, but it's getting in the way of putting money aside for something that she really cares about and the things that she really wants to be doing. And when the light bulb went off, she says, oh my gosh, I get this now. You know, no wonder I'm frustrated because I'm not able to put money towards something that I'm really passionate about, what I really care about, and that's writing books and helping other women. I'm putting it towards a car that, you know, it doesn't bring me the same satisfaction. And so after we had that conversation, it completely changed what she's going to do. Interesting. I got an email, and I want to share this with you. I got this email from her yesterday afternoon on my way home. And here's what it says. It says, today was a really big day for me personally. I'm very excited to develop a financial plan moving forward. I forgot there are two other things I want to accomplish. Go back to school for master's in theology and have enough money to write books and market them. I'm looking forward to our next meeting. Thank you. And it's like, yes, when I saw that, because it's like they get it. Her and her husband left there and they were on the same page. And she was excited. We're excited because she finally begins to understand, you know what? It's important to put my money where my values actually are. Now, here's what I want to do. I'm going to show you this next ladder, and I'm actually going to read you a story out of the book. Here's the book called Smart Women Finish Rich. I'm going to read this because David does a beautiful job of telling this story. And so as I'm reading it, I want you see the different things on the rungs of the ladder, okay? So as we go up, we're starting with that question, what's important about money? As I read this, I want you to hear it, listen, and then begin to see how we begin to fill this in. So you'll be able to do this for yourself, okay? So I'm going to read this. It says, he says, when I asked her to tell me what was most important to her about money. Well, David, she said, I guess when I think about money, what's really important to me is security. That's great, I said. Of course, security means different things to different people. Help me to understand what's important about security to you. Jessica didn't hesitate. Having security lets me feel that I'm free to do what I want when I want, she replied. And what does that feeling of being able to do what you want mean to you? I asked. I guess it means having a sense of freedom, not feeling constrained by the duties of life. I see. So what would not having these constraints in your life and having this freedom mean to you? Jessica thought for a moment. It would mean that I would have more time to be with my daughter, who is growing up so fast that she's going to be in college before I know it, she said, and I could spend more time with my husband and my friends, who I rarely see now because I'm always so busy. Okay, I nodded. Let's assume for a moment that you have security, and that as a result, you have the freedom to spend more time with your daughter and your husband and your friends. What's important about being in that position to you? Well, I guess it would make me feel calmer and happier, Jessica responded. Definitely happier. Right now, I feel burned out all the time. I'd like to not be tired for a change. And what's important to you about that? I asked her. Jessica smiled wearily. I just spend so much time rushing around trying to do everything, working, being a wife, being a mother, keeping the house and the bills in order, that I don't feel like I have a life. Some days I don't even remember what it feels like to not be exhausted. So it's important for you to not rush around and to feel you have a life again, I said. Once again, Jessica did not hesitate. Yes, definitely, she said firmly. I want my life back. When I asked Jessica what she would do if she had her life back, she said she'd start taking better care of herself, exercising and eating better. When I pressed her on why she wanted to do that, she said her aim was to live longer and be a better example for her daughter. Okay, I continued. So now that you're going to live longer and be an example to your daughter, what else would you do with your life? Jessica frowned for a moment, lost in thought. That's a tough one to answer, she said finally. I'm not sure. I wasn't about to let her off the hook. I know you're not sure, I persisted, but if you were sure, what do you think you would say? Well, she said slowly, I guess if I really had my life together the way I wanted it, I would focus on getting more involved with charity groups in my community. In response to my follow-up questions, Jessica explained that making a difference and giving something back was really important to her. Is there anything more important to you than making a difference and helping others, I asked. Jessica looked me in the eye. I just want to know that when I go, I've lived a full life, loved, been a good example to my daughter and my family, and really made a difference. She blushed consciously. That's all, she said. That, of course, was a lot to think about and a lot to remember when it came to the construction of her financial plan. So as you can see, as I walked you through that, hopefully you got a flavor for what that's like. And so one of the things that we'll help you do, we'll send you a copy where you can have the ladder where you can begin to work on that. We also host events where, and we'll have one coming up where it's a workshop. We're working on your values and your goals. So you've got to establish those values first and then identify those goals. In the next series of the webinar series, Jonathan's going to be with you. And he's going to be talking about, knowing where you are. Your goals will be a part of that process as you do that. But again, if you're like, you know what, I need to get started. I need to do something. Then again, I want you to feel free to pick up the phone and call us at 615-661-9554. Or you can email us at www.keystonefinancialresources.com. Also, you're going to get a free copy of the Smart Women Finish Rich. So someone will be reaching out to you to get you that gift. If you don't get it, then please feel free to reach out to us. We'll know if you were attending on the webinar today. And then feel free, if you want to come and schedule, we'll offer you an opportunity to come in, no obligation whatsoever. If you came into the office just to sit down and have a discussion about what we've talked about today, it'd be very fruitful. You'd have no pressure, and you would have a nice cup of coffee or a tea, cookie if you decided to come here, or we could do a Zoom. Either way, you'll walk away and know that you've been with someone who really cares. So I hope you will stay with us on the webinars ahead. Pass this over to your lady friends. Invite them to be a part of this going forward, and I look forward to talking to you in the weeks to come. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.